I have access to all the information that's ever been recorded in history. I can have any food I want at my fingertips. I can communicate with anybody whenever I want. I can have sex with people anytime I want through apps, through finding people who are interested in the same thing I am or whatever. So 30, 40 years from now, I mean, we're going to have everything that we could ever want. The people who are going to be healthy and happy are the ones that are going to have discipline and practices. Everybody else is going to be in a bad situation because they're going to be in this position where, wow, I have everything I want, but I'm fucking sad. Now what? Like, what do I do now?
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 121 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Happy Monday. I hope you're having an amazing day. If this is your first time joining me, I want to thank you for checking the show out. My show is all about having meaningful, in-person conversations with the most badass people that I know. And today is a very, very special episode of the podcast. But before I jump into the show, I wanted to mention that this episode of the podcast has been brought to you by Eyes Ahead Media. Eyes Ahead Media is a group of creative professionals who understand the value of exposure. And in today's social media landscape, eyeballs are the new currency. The more attention you have, the bigger impact you can make. And for the past few months, Eyes Ahead has been perfecting their custom Instagram GIF stickers. Now, Instagram is one of the biggest platforms in the world, and as you may know, Eyes Ahead has actually created all of the Andrew Deitch podcast Instagram stickers. Every single day, I get people messaging me about what celebrity is using one of my GIFs on their stories. And a few weeks ago, even Wiz Khalifa used one of my GIFs when he was on Joe Rogan. It's freaking crazy. And in total, all of their GIFs have been viewed over 700 million times. So if you're interested in having your face or your brand seen by millions of people around the world, visit eyesaheadmedia.com/GIF for more details. All right, so let's jump into the show. My guests today are podcast OGs, Adam Schafer, Sal Di Stefano, and Justin Andrews from Mind Pump. And if you've been living under a rock, Mind Pump Media is an entire fitness media company now, but their core focus since 2014 has been the Mind Pump podcast. And it's actually the #1 podcast in the fitness category on Apple Podcasts. And they get about 2 million downloads per month, millions of views on their YouTube channel, and they capture over 1,000 emails per week. They didn't hack any algorithms or do any gimmicky bullshit to capture people's attention. They just kept providing more and more value to people until it was almost impossible to consume all of their free content. And together, the three of them have combined over 50 years of fitness experience as personal trainers, club managers, IFBB fitness competitors, and fitness thought leaders. And honestly, they were just fed up with the fitness industry preying on people's insecurities, and so they came together to create Mind Pump as a platform to shed the light of truth on health, fitness, and other wellness topics. And I actually started listening to Mind Pump back in February when Adam reached out to Eyes Ahead about creating some custom Instagram stickers for them. So last week, they flew me out to San Jose to the Mind Pump HQ, and we created some GIFs, and then we knocked out this epic episode in their studio. And during this conversation, we talked briefly about starting Mind Pump, about raising kids in the digital age, how to balance digital health with your personal life, and so much more. Honestly, I was kind of nervous to do this podcast with the three of them at first, since this was the most guests I've ever had on the show, but we really got into a groove, and I personally think that we crushed it. All right, so I'm gonna shut up now. Please, without any further ado, welcome Adam, Sal, and Justin. Well, I normally say welcome to my guests, but I guess it's a welcome to me because I'm here in the Mind Pump studio with Sal, Justin, and Adam.
What's up, man?
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for having me.
I just had a lot of fun with you earlier, making a bunch of GIFs.
Yeah,
I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Yeah.
That would have been
had a
weird.
lot of fun with you earlier there. Yeah, we were shooting some GIFs. By the time this comes out, I think the GIFs will be live. So if you go in the Instagram GIF search and type in Mind Pump or any of their names, I'm sure a lot of these will come up.
Anything cheese related.
Yes, anything cheese related.
Yikes.
But guys, I'm really stoked to be here. I honestly, when I first came, I thought I was only going to be talking to Adam on the podcast. So I'm like kind of stoked that I'm getting everody in here.
Yeah,
this is
cool
pretty legendary.
That would have been boring.
Yeah, no, it's cool when you get the better host. You know what I mean?
So I was going to say, I kind of want to give people a little quick, brief backstory on Mind Pump, but I don't want to go so crazy into it because I think you guys have told that story so many times that if people want to go back and listen and stuff, they can. But just if you guys can wrap it up in a quick nutshell, how did you guys get started with Mind Pump and what do you guys do?
I'll do it real fast. I mean, we all have been working in fitness for 2 decades at least. All started as personal trainers or managed gyms or managed trainers. And for most of our career, we didn't really know each other. I know Adam and Justin worked together for a little while, and Doug at one point was one of my clients when I was a personal trainer, but we didn't all know each other. Fast forward, years after we've all been working in fitness for a while, I had created a fitness program, and I'd gotten in touch with Adam. We had mutual friends, and I'd heard lots of good things about him. And he was doing some stuff on social media for his own business, and I wanted his opinion on some of my marketing material. And so I send it over to him, and he calls me up, and we start talking and just hit it right off. And that was when the idea was first came forward to start a podcast. And we thought the podcast medium was perfect because, when we knew as trainers, a lot of the things that we try to communicate require conversation. It's not the problem with fitness. The problem that's been with fitness for a long time is that they try to communicate ideas with small snippets
little
of
sound bites.
Yeah, and the problem with that is you get a lot of false information. It's the stuff that gets your attention real quick. And we knew that it required a longer conversation. Real fitness and health is different than what you see with most of the marketing and media. And so podcasting was perfect for us. Also, we wanted to be uncensored. We wanted to maintain our integrity. We didn't want to be beholden to any corporate sponsors. And the barrier to enter the podcast world is real low. Anybody can start a podcast. And so that's what we did. We all met, and we right out the gates, we knew this was something we wanted to do. And that was pretty much it. We had no idea what we were doing. All of our experience was in training people, communicating fitness, and helping people get in better shape and change their behaviors. None of our experience was in media. None of us had podcasted. None of us had really done anything in the media world. But we knew we had talked about things so many different times that we knew we could communicate them well. And we did it. We started out, and it turned out to be a hit, and it worked out great.
The secret sauce is really in the education through entertainment. So I think that was what we saw so unique right away when we decided that we were going to do a podcast. We started looking at other podcasts that were out there in our space in health and fitness. And you found one of two things. Either one, you heard a podcast that was purely entertaining, wasn't science-based. It was either funny or very bro-like or whatever. and that was one side. Or it was heavily science-based, which is what we all tended to gravitate because we're all nerds at heart. And so I listened to a lot of these nerdy podcasts, but I also know that none of my clients or my friends would listen to these podcasts. Very science-based, dry,
boring
interviewing PhDs, stuff that I'm interested in, and these guys are interested in, but not the masses.
Yeah.
And so we really saw this opportunity to deliver a very intelligent message in a more entertaining way. And so we evolved this it started off as very locker room type banter that ended up transcending into, health and fitness advice. But as we got better and better at the craft, I think we start to hone in on our skills on the entertainment of what we would call locker room talk. And it's more current events, things that we're currently into that we kind of talk about at the beginning of the show. That kind of pulls people in. They find that entertaining. We're definitely razz the shit out of each other. We are like three best friends, even though we started off as strangers.
Yeah.
We've gotten to know each other over 1,000 podcast episodes now. And I think we lead with the authenticity. So when we talk to each other, it's very real. It's not scripted. And that comes off. And I think people just appreciate that in our space.
We've worked our way towards basically trying to have it look and sound a lot like how we used to train clients, and everything we've mentioned in terms of what needs to be communicated to them and what they hear out there from Dr. Oz's and from all these other magazines and the sources out there. We were always we had to basically take all that information and then break it down. Okay, this is why this is wrong. This is why you want to steer towards this. And here's the few things you need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
And so it's half that time as a personal trainer, we were all dealing with that on a daily basis. And so how can we now kind of use this and use a long form platform to really explain these things out so people get a better understanding of it, and then also entertain them? Because half the time when I'm getting a client, I want to make sure they're having a good time. And so I'll throw jokes out there or ask them about pop culture or bullshit. And because you know what, they want to look forward to coming back and going through a workout with you. And a lot of times, like we've found, like long-term clients, they just love coming in and hanging out.
Yeah, they're going to see you for 2 or 3 hours a week for maybe years. I tell this to trainers all the time. The number one thing that's going to make you successful as a personal trainer is, do clients like you? That's number one. I don't care how good you are or how excellent you are at your craft. If they don't like you, they're not going to come back. And we're in an information battle. Most of the information in the fitness space is wrong, but it's entertaining and it's catchy. And we have to fight fire with fire. We've got good information, but if we don't entertain like they do, if we don't get people's attention like they do, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, we're using their tactics, but we're giving the best information on top of it.
Yeah, and I've heard you guys talk about how there's that part of the fitness industry that was more geared towards wellness and the woo-woo type shit, and then there was kind of this bro side that was, like you were kind of talking about slamming, cheeseburgers after your workout and stuff like that. And now in 2019, we're kind of seeing the marriage of those, but you guys were kind of started that with the Mind Pump podcast.
It used to be bros versus hippies. Now it's like a bro hippie. It's weird.
Yeah.
Brippy. Yeah. No, we saw the trend. We saw the trend as trainers. I mean, I as a trainer, I started out and I was all about macros, calories, pre-workout, post-workout, build muscle, burn body fat. And then I started working with wellness experts. I used to have a personal training studio that employed some of them. And a lot of the information that they were presenting was different than what I would present, but it was very valuable. And I started to see lots of crossover. And I started to think, why do we have all these camps? There's a lot of crossover here. Like gut health, for example. That was a very wellness topic. Well, will gut health benefit someone who just wants to build a lot of muscle and be strong or burn body fat? Absolutely. Sleep quality. That was a very wellness topic. Does sleep quality benefit someone who just wants to build muscle and burn body fat? Absolutely. And so I can go down the list and think of all the things that were at one point relegated to the wellness side or just the bro side. Look at this. How about learning how to really get the body to adapt to build muscle? Will somebody who's just interested in longevity and wellness benefit from some of that knowledge? Absolutely. And so we knew that. We tried to combine the two. And of course, I mean, if you look at us, we look like bros. So when we start talking about wellness stuff, at first people kind of laugh and then they listen. Mainly because we don't look like your typical, wispy hippie that's, sitting in front of a tree that's telling you that you need to, take care of your gut health. We're guys that can, deadlift more weight than you can, and then we'll tell you about gut health and taking care of yourself and meditating and stuff like that. And again, it's really, it's the battle of information. We're trying to get people's attention better than the other guys so that they can get the right information. It's the only way to beat them.
And I've heard you guys kind of talk about shifting from just talking about fitness stuff, and you guys have definitely been doing that in your quad episodes, where in the beginning, first 40 minutes or so, are just talking about kind of current events and stuff like that, and then breaking into the Q&A that are typically more fitness related. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just something that kind of over time you realized that you were kind of already talking about current events, so you just...
It was
both.
It was a conscious decision. I mean, when we first started, we spent several days deliberating over what the name of the podcast would be. Like, it took us a long time to decide on Mind Pump. And one of the things that we all agreed on was we did not want to pigeonhole ourselves just into fitness. As much as that's our expertise, as much as we love fitness, we also have been doing it for, like Sal said, 2 decades. And I don't want to get on a show and always have to talk only about fitness. I know all of us we knew that we would get bored eventually.
Totally.
We would be over and there's other things that we're all interested in. And so we kind of knew that early, and that's why we named the podcast Mind Pump, and it's not barbell something or something related to fitness. We knew that from the very get-go. The whole current events thing, that kind of that happened. Like, we started to recognize about, I don't know, I'd say about episode 600 or so, somewhere in that range, that we had grown to a significant size, but this time we're doing close to or about 1 million downloads a month. And there was a clear division. 50% of the audience is listening to the show purely for the banter and the information, the current event type talk and conversation at the beginning of the show. Then we had the other 50% that hated that and didn't want anything really to do with that. They've been listening to us purely for our information, because the information is so solid, it's science-based, and we know what the fuck we're talking about when it comes to fitness, and they don't want to hear us talk about other stuff. So we actually went back and forth for a while there where we're like, fuck, do we start another show? And do we have a different day on this? And then, we decided like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to keep everything the same, but we're going to change our intro. So we at this time, I think back then, Sal used to just kind of open it up and be like, oh, today's episode, we're going to do whatever. I don't remember what he used to do, but he used to do something different when we just would.
I'd say something stupid like, welcome to Mind Pump, the podcast that puts the something in the something, and it would be something obscene.
Oh, that's what you do. Yeah, he'd say some ridiculous.
Puts the S in astronaut.
Puts the master
whatever.
in masturbate or something like that.
Yeah. He would say something.
I think he had like 30 of those.
He did.
That's good.
So that kind of like got us through for a long time, and then we realized, you know what? Well, let's do this. Let's tell our audience what to expect in the episode. So Doug, while we were talking, you'll see Doug over on the computer, and he's just kind of taking notes of our bullet points of what we converse about, and then at the end of the show, we actually go back and we do the introduction to the show. So we know what we all talked about, and then now Sal will intro and say, okay, for the first 42 minutes of this episode, we talk about Elon Musk's lawsuit, we talk about what's happening with Google right now, and we talk about all these things, and then we get into the science.
Yeah, because the way the show would open before is it would just, at first it started out with me introing it like, welcome to Mind Pump. Then it turned into just, you'd walk into a conversation. Yeah. And we did the walk into a conversation for a long time. But part of it was conscious. Part of it was us identifying, okay, this is how people are listening, and we need to make it more. Let's be more clear with the beginning and more clear with the question and answer part. But part of it was unconscious. It morphed into that. It really did. Like we'd start the podcast, and every podcast would open with,
did you hear about this or whatever?
Yeah, it would just be us having a good time talking.
We're catching up, because when we first started, we all had different jobs, and this was something where we would meet together once a week, and we'd do 2 or 3, and we'd try and rip these out. And so it was like, what's new with you? And we just start bullshitting. And that became part of the formula where sometimes we'd lean heavy, just all in that. Let's just talk about, whatever's happened to us, or new studies or cool things that we know. And then we got into specific subjects, and then we kind of just figured out, we just smash them together. And then it became a formula, like Adam said. So.
I like the idea of doing the intro, recording the intro afterwards.
Game changer.
I learned that from, I think it was on Rogan or something. He was talking about how he used to do it where it was just awkward because the guest, if you had a guest there too, you're sitting there with the guest and you're introing them awkwardly, and they're like, should I say hi or?
Yeah. Well, people immediately, what would end up happening is when
it's too formal.
Yeah, we do interviews. People would sit down like we're doing now. And we would be having good conversation. And then Doug would be like, okay, guys, you ready to go? And then he'd be like, okay, today my guest is whatever. And immediately they'd get nervous, stiffen
Everybody
up.
changes.
And it'd become formulaic. And so we thought to ourselves, wow, what if we just record? We don't tell them. And we just start talking. And then at the end, I could always intro them afterwards. Plus, it gives me the ability to talk about what's in this episode. Like we talk about this because we just had the episode. And it worked great. The guests would sit down. We'd put our headphones on. We'd just start talking. And half the time the guests would, 10, 15 minutes into it, be like, are you guys recording? Be like, yeah, we are. Yeah. And we would keep going. And it would just keep them.
When are we going to start?
It would just keep them relaxed, We'd keep it natural. Otherwise, it sounds formulaic. And I hate interviews. I used to hate listening to interviews where it felt like a job interview, like question, answer, question, answer. The best interviews are always the conversational ones. Joe Rogan is the master of that. You listen to his podcast and he's just having a conversation with people. And we wanted that kind of flavor. And one of the most important aspects of that is the comfort of your guest. If your guest feels relaxed and cool and comfortable and we're just going to go and no pressure, then the best stuff would come out. And that would be true for us as well. And we have good chemistry with each other. Introducing another person into that chemistry means that they also need to be kind of chill and relax.
Took us a while, though.
Yes,
Took us a while, man.
That was probably one of our biggest hurdles. Was actually
we just recently got good at interviews.
Yeah,
we sucked for a long time.
Yeah, we were naturally good with the three of us because we all liked each other. We had good conversation. It was very authentic, so it wasn't like we had to put on anything. But as soon as we mixed a fourth person in there, it just fucked up our dynamic. And that was probably one of the first hurdles that we overcame when we had the the intro afterwards, because we were doing interviews with them in front of the person introing them for probably, I don't know, maybe the first 100 or so. Mm-hmm. And we'd always talk about it afterwards, like, fuck, why are our interviews suck?
And then what else we'd notice is that the interview would suck for the first 30, 40 minutes, and then the last 20, 30 minutes it
starts to get good.
It would just start to get good. And we're like, how can we emulate that from the beginning, like right out the gates? And it was the intro was screwing it up. It was just stopping everything. Okay, Doug, you on? Mm-hmm. Okay. In today's episode, I'm talking to Adam Schafer, who's from, and immediately changed the energy of everything. So it's a very, we have no experience in media, but because we podcast so often, I mean, we do 5 episodes a week, and we've been doing 5 episodes a week for a long time. And this is something that we stumbled upon. The reason why we did 5 episodes a week is because we knew we could drown any of our competition out with information. We're talking about fitness. I've been doing fitness for 20 years. I could talk about fitness 24 hours a day for the next 10 years, and I won't run out of topics. So our idea was, let's drown people out with more information than anybody. But the side effect of that, the thing that none of us really even anticipated, was just that it was a lot of practice. Mm-hmm. It was constant reps, to the point now where in 4 years, we've podcasted more than most podcasts that have been around for 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if any of it have
you ever
been around
added
for
up
15.
the amount of hours, like how many weeks or years it would take to listen to all of it?
You figure it's 1,000 episodes. The average episode is an hour long. Some are longer. It's got to be around 1,000 hours of just conversation. And again, most podcasts would take 10 to 15 years to do that same amount, because most podcasts do between one to two episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
And what ends up happening is you get a feel for things because of the constant practice. And so we get this feel for the energy and vibe and the momentum of the conversation that we've now developed with each other, because, again, we've sat down and had deep conversation for 1,000 hours.
Yeah, we've actually noticed after every 200 episodes, like we feel this
growth bump.
Huh. Yeah, it's a new sort of a standard that we're playing in at that point. So it's interesting. We've kind of deduced it down to that, where it's a 200 episodes. Like, oh, this feels different, and then it's either like a flow thing, or maybe it's with the interviews. Like we get better at the interviews or something. But we noticed some kind of a growth bump.
When we first noticed it was when we would do those. What we identified a couple of years ago was, in order to really grow the podcast fast and increase our revenues for our program sales, we had to get on a lot of podcasts to expose, because we did no advertising whatsoever for the pod. We still don't do any advertising for the podcast itself. So we've never done advertising. So at the time, it's like, how do we get ourselves out there? One of the best ways to do it is to get on other podcasts, like, for example, like yours. And so we did the strategy where we would get on as many as possible within a short period of time, just get ourselves out there. And there's a lot of podcasters in the LA area. And so we would do these Los Angeles trips where we would go for 3 days, for example, and we would record, no joke, 7, 8, 9 podcasts, maybe more, in a 2 or 3 day period. And then we started calling it the podcast hard.
Podcast hard, man.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of energy.
It does.
Here's the crazy thing that we noticed. We would do these podcast hard trips where we'd go to LA for 3 days and just do 15 different podcasts. We'd come back and we'd be better on our own podcast. And then we started to piece it together and be like, oh, it's because we were practicing so much when we were down there. And so that's now become a part of our formulas. It's like the more you do it, the better. It's true. It's like, this is true for anything.
Yep.
The more you do it, the better you get. And so at the end of the day, I guess that's our superpower, is that we just do it more than most people,
That's true, though. Like a lot of people talk about that, just doing it more. It's, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard kind of thing. It's
Absolutely.
like the more reps you can do, the better you're just going to get.
Well, it's like, what is it, 5,000 or 10,000 hours before you're considered 10,000 hours?
Something like that. Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, before you're considered a master at something. So, I mean, I know, thinking back to how many hours of, that's over 5 years of personal training, one-on-one clients, nonstop, 8 hours a day, just to achieve that level. So of course, I expect it to take at least that long in podcasting, especially since I have no experience. None of us have any experience in media. But again, that was one of the exciting parts about partnering up with all 4 or 3 of these guys, is that the work ethic that everybody has, and the knowing, getting into this, like, nobody thought they were good at this. Nobody came in and was like, I'm going to be a great podcaster.
I'm going to carry this on my back.
Yeah, nobody thought that, but we all were like, listen, we knew we had good information to present. We loved what we were doing, and all of us are competitive with ourselves to keep growing and be better, and it shows. And to Justin's point, it takes about every 200 or so hours. But you feel these little micro bumps of like getting better at the craft.
Yeah, and I think a lot of podcasters too, they start off in the same way where they know they're not really necessarily good at it because they've never done it before. It's their first podcast. And I think a lot of people start it with a friend because they're kind of scared to do it on their own, and then it ends up just kind of like fizzling out. Why do you think that happens so often?
Well, I mean, a partnership's like a marriage.
Yep.
You got to find the right partner needs to align with your core values. But before they can align with your core values, you have to define what your real core values are. Now, here's the problem with that is a lot of people will say what their core values are, but they're not really telling the truth. Your actions will tell you what your real core values are. If somebody really believes in something, they act as if they do. They don't just say that they do. And one of our core values was integrity. To the point where to our fault even. I mean, for the first 2 years of podcasting, we made no money off of sponsors because we were so vocal against the supplement industry aspect of fitness. Yeah. Nobody wanted to advertise us because we were honest. We'd say, look, supplements largely don't do shit. Most of them are garbage. A lot of it, the advertising is lies. The stuff that really works is the stuff that you're not going to buy in a bottle. And we would talk about that. And so that killed us initially financially. When we talk about anything, it's our integrity comes through to the point where, again, if it hurts us, so be it. If someone tells us we can't say something, we're probably going to say it. We also unabashedly and unequivocally are fitness and health enthusiasts, not in the sense that we love fitness so much that it's our passion, it runs our life. We do love fitness, but we're not fanatics about it. What I mean when I say that we're fitness enthusiasts is that we see and believe in the value of what real health can do for people, to the point where all of us have experienced what it felt like to make a lot more money outside of the field of fitness. When you look at all the different industries that you could enter into work, people do not get into the fitness industry because they're going to make a lot of money. I'm just going to be honest with you. Can you make money in fitness? Yes, you can. Is it as easy to make a lot of money in fitness as it is in like tech or investments or banking? Definitely not. Like an okay investment banker is going to make 10 times more money than an excellent personal trainer. It's just the reality. And all of us have experienced that. We've all stepped outside for a bit or seen what we could do and other things. I know with my ability to communicate in sales, I could sell tech, I could sell medical equipment, and I'd make a lot more money. And I tried investments for a short period, couldn't stand it because my passion was in fitness and health. Adam did the same thing. I know Justin's had those opportunities. So our core values are like, we know why we're doing this. And we would do it even if it made us almost no money. In fact, all of us left at some point a career where we were making a lot of money to do the thing that we were passionate about. We knew it had to do with integrity. We were 100% behind that. And we love having fun. That's the other thing too. That's one of our core values. I mean, and it's funny because it's a little bit misleading. People will come in and think, oh, these guys just have fun all day long.
Goof off all day.
No. It's that we make everything fun. Right. That's the key. Like we work hard, it's fun. We fucking, working on social media, it's fun. We're podcasting, it's fun. So
making GIFs,
it's fun.
It's fun.
It's
right. Hell yeah.
And we believe that. And I think part of that comes from what made us successful as personal trainers. One of the components of making you a successful trainer is again, like Justin said earlier, does your client enjoy coming in? So if you're going to be a good trainer and you're going to do it for 10 or 20 years like I did, you got to have to become a master at enjoying what you're doing. The other thing is we all manage teams of trainers or salespeople in gyms. And the most successful gyms ever that I've ever run were the ones where everybody enjoyed what they were doing. That's the only way you're going to get the most out of people is that they love it. They have a passion for it. So we align in these core values, and that's what makes us work so well together. Plus, I think when we all met, we're all at points in our lives where we've done a lot of personal growth to where the whole ego thing that, if we all met when we were 22 years old, I don't think Mind Pump would have worked at all. I think our egos would have gotten in the way. We would have, I don't know what it would have looked like. It would have been
exploded.
It would have been a blaze of glory in a very short period of time. Shit would have blown up. It would have been bad. But we're at the point in our lives where our ego, we were a little bit more developed. We were okay with leading and following. And we were humble and confident enough to be ourselves. And so I think that's what made it work. But make no mistake, podcasting with other people is not easier than podcasting by yourself. It's just different. They're different skills.
I would think it's as hard or harder. I did a post, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago on the 5 biggest mistakes I've made in building a business. And one of the mistakes I put on there was partnering out of fear. And I think this is more common than not in entrepreneurship. And I think you hit it on the head when you asked that question about, people partnering up. I think a big mistake is they do it out of fear. They do it because
they don't want to be alone.
They don't want to be alone. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. I've never done it before. Everybody would rather do something with another person, especially if you're doing something that's scary for the first time, which is the absolute worst reason why to partner with somebody. And definitely none of us are scared to do something by ourselves. In fact, we're the opposite. You've definitely got 4 alpha leader, type of personalities in this room. If anything, that was probably the scariest part was, wow, how are we going to do this with, already these leaders? Who's going to lead this thing? And it ended up working magically. So I think that if we would have got into it out of fear, I think it would have failed a long time ago. And I think that's a mistake that most people make.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you're totally right about partnering over fear. And I think people are afraid to put themselves out there because they're thinking about what is everyone going to think. Especially, with me with the podcast, starting it by myself, I wasn't really that scared because I was just going to go for it. And my family, I told them what I was doing and they were supportive. My friends, I told them what I was doing. I was supportive, but I think a lot of people are scared of what their friends and family are going to think because they're like thinking, who's this jackass? He thinks he's smart. He can go talk to, cool people or whatever. He thinks he's good enough to have his own show. Who does he think he is?
Well, two things. First off, if you're genuinely authentic, then the people you surround yourself with are supportive when you're trying something, happy when you succeed, and genuinely sad when you have a difficult time. So if you are surrounded by people who are like that, extremely critical and not supportive, then look at yourself. Why are you considering these people friends, and who are you surrounding yourself with? I know when I've stepped outside of my comfort zone many, many times. I've tried many businesses. Not all of them have succeeded. And the people close to me, I can trust their criticisms. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that if Justin comes up to me and says, "Hey, dude, I need to talk to you. Like, you're slacking, or you acted like an asshole yesterday." Like, it might hurt for a second. My ego might not like it, but it's Justin. I trust him. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I think I need to look into this because Justin said it. Because I've made myself. I've put myself out as authentic enough and surrounded myself with people that I can receive that from. Now, if I'm not in that space, then yeah, you're gonna hear that criticism from people who just don't want to see you succeed. That's why you got to look at yourself and say, who am I surrounding myself with?
Yeah, I just don't think a lot of people should have a partnership for podcasting or have other hosts. I just don't. It's a really unique situation I'm finding all the time when we get asked that question. It's like, it's so unique the way that this dynamic works and kind of what was brought in terms of, like, we all had different directions that we were leading, our own personal endeavors, our own businesses, our own vision. So it was, for even myself, I found the difficulty being that we all had a very similar grandiose vision for where we wanted to go, but the way to get there, the struggle in that of having a vision and seeing things a certain way, but then having to communicate that, and then your partner has a different vision, and then another partner has a different vision, but then still having to pursue everything forward was very difficult.
Yeah, one of the hard things when you work with partners, I think, for people is there's going to be 100%, there's going to be moments where you disagree, where one or two people, depending on how many partners you have, want to go in a particular direction. You disagree. You think it's a bad idea. Maybe you're outnumbered. So you say, fine, let's move forward. And then that idea fails. What oftentimes can happen is you build resentment towards the partners who came up with the idea. Like, I knew that we shouldn't have done that. We wasted money. That was a bad idea. It didn't work. That's a mistake. That's a huge mistake. When you move forward with something, you need to adopt it like it's your own. Even if it wasn't, even if you were against it, if you move forward with it, you fucking adopt it. If we failed, we failed together. And definitely if we succeed, that's the easy one though, right? If we succeed, everybody wants to join in and be like, yeah, we all did this together. That's an easy one. It's the failures that are hard,
Yeah.
but you have to adopt it. You can't, this is the worst thing you could possibly do is you move forward with an idea and then it fail and then you point at the person like, I told you it fucking sucked. We should have never done it, whatever. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What's more
Dismantles
important?
from there.
They know that. You didn't want to do it before. They knew that already. It doesn't matter. You're moving forward together as a team. And that's, you have to ask yourself what's most important. Is it most important that I remind everybody that this wasn't my idea, or is it most important that we regroup and move forward? You need to ask yourself that. What is the ultimate goal here? I mean, for us, I know very clearly what our ultimate goal is. We all know what our ultimate goal is. I don't care how we get there. The ultimate goal we all share is the same.
Yeah.
It
We
is
need
to
win.
It's to win. It is to fundamentally shift the fitness industry for the positive. It is to influence and help people for the positive through entertainment and through good information. How we get there, I don't care if Justin comes up with the best ideas or Doug or Adam or myself. It doesn't matter. We're all going to move forward and we're going to all fail. At some point, we're going to fail, and that's okay. We all do it together. And that's the attitude you have to go into with any kind of partnership, whether it's business or otherwise.
Yeah, I was actually going to transition a little bit when you were talking about any sort of partnership. I wanted to talk about your marriages and your relationships a little bit because I know you've got a kid on the way. You've got a couple of kids, right, Sal?
Mm-hmm.
Justin, do you have any
I
kids?
have 2 kids,
You have 2 kids as well. So I wanted to kind of talk about what your vision kind of for raising kids in the 21st century kind of looks like, actually, because you were kind of talking about with a partnership, you've got 2 different visions of what that kind of looks like. How do you guys all approach that?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll start this one off because this was an interesting growth moment for me, was being the only guy of the 4 of us that has no kids when we first started. And I come from this, just grind and to get there. Like we have a goal. We all agree on the goal. We're a team. Let's go.
Live in the studio.
Yes, that's right.
I remember that. I used to be like that.
Get your sleeping bag. We set our first financial bar goal or whatever that is, and we don't leave work until we get there. Like
Elon Musk style. Sleeping on the floor.
That's how I've been successful in almost everything else I did. And when we all created this, we all were in different places, and the other men, even more different than me because they have kids. And we didn't start this just to make money. We didn't start this just to be successful at podcasting or build this Mind Pump Media company. There was this ultimate vision, and part of that vision too included creating a lifestyle that allowed these guys to spend time with their kids. And I struggled with this. I mean, we used to stop work at 2:00 every day. 9 a.m. to 2, Monday through Friday. That's fucking Mind Pump was built on that. And I would just want to pull my hair out because I'd want. And what's great?
That's where it went.
Yeah.
Snap.
Sorry. That was underhanded.
So I wanted to pull my hair out, what was left of it, because these guys were like, nah. They had already made the decision that family is important, and that Sal, he wants to pick his kids up from school every day, and he does. And Justin's that every sporting event that both his kids are involved in, he's coaching, he's doing all this stuff. Doug is always there with his daughter. Like they spend so much time around their family, and it was great for me to struggle with that at the beginning. Then I had to learn to become more organized to fit within the time frame that we had, which was great for me because that was always a weakness. So it evolved me there, and I grew there. And then it also prepared me for what I'm about to head into right now as a father. Is like, now I understand that, because my brain's already moving in that fashion of yeah, I want to be there for his first steps. Yes, I want to be a part of every sport he plays. I don't give a fuck how famous Mind Pump is or how rich we are. I won't go on a trip if it means missing something with my son. So, again, this goes back to the core values and being like a marriage is I think that we are all very similar there. If anybody was a little bit off or different there, I would say it was probably me because I didn't have the kids at first. And so I kind of had to go through this. And when I say it was...
I think it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
I mean, what examples of health and wellness and balance would we be if we were the, working, 7 a.m. to, 10 p.m. I mean, I did that. I did that for years.
Yep.
It's one of the causes of my divorce. It's one of the reasons why I didn't have phenomenal relationships with my children in some of their earlier years. I mean, I was there as a father. I loved them. I provided for them, but I wasn't there. And, you start to realize once you get what you think you want, you get the money, you get the whatever, you start to realize it's not what you really wanted. And people talk about balance and enjoyment and fulfillment and meaning. I don't think people really realize what that truly means. It's harder than you think. It's actually easier to build a business when you have limitless hours. Yep. It's easier. You just, fine, I'll just sit here and make it happen. I did that with many of my businesses. Many of the times I've run gyms and owned my business. But it wasn't nearly as fulfilling, meaningful as what we're doing now. And the irony is it wasn't as successful either. We're accomplishing things that none of us individually had ever accomplished. And we're doing it with better scheduled, more balance, more time with our families, which you know what that means? That means we're going to be able to do this forever. That means we have longevity. That means that our families are going to be happy. That means that we're not going to suffer from a lot of the same problems that a lot of ambitious men tend to suffer from, which is loss of their families, eventually their wives. And then let me tell you, on the other end of that, you realize real quick like what life is all about. As far as my kids are concerned, I want self-aware, confident children or humans. I want to help raise self-aware, confident humans who are confident enough to pursue their interests with integrity in ways that benefit themselves and society. Now, what does that mean? They will define what that means. But I want to raise humans who are resilient, who are good, who understand the difference between fun and enjoyment and pleasure and meaning and purpose, who understand what hard work really means, but also understand what's important in life. And it's not just necessarily about money, but about maybe what the money can help provide and bring, which tends to be flexibility and enjoyment with the people around you. So I just want to raise good humans at the end of the day. So that's my goal now.
I could totally echo that. I think that's beautifully stated. And I think that for me too, like just spending that time has always been a struggle. I've always wanted to pursue a life where I could provide this freedom, this financial freedom, this way that I could spend more time and be around and have more flexibility, and then just realize that, well, you could actually structure that. And then this is something that you could do right now and put steps towards that direction. And you didn't have to punish everybody around you to get to your desired outcome. And it was a long shift for me to get into that mindset and that place where I knew that, like all this work that we did leading into where we are right now currently, it's allowed for us to structure our day and our lifestyle and everything according to what our top tier values are. And so I hold those dearly. And raising my kids it's like selfishly, I take a lot from the podcast. I take a lot from my own personal growth and just being around these gentlemen to highlight things and struggles and be able to communicate better so I can communicate to my wife better. I can communicate to my kids better. I can bring in guests that have unique insights where I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think of doing that. I need to do that more often. And there's lots of examples of that. One of them specifically, Dr. Warren Farrell was talking to us about the importance of, roughhousing and play. And I have 2 boys. And so that just resonated with me so hard. It was like, not only was it fun and it's something the kids really look forward to, but it really provides like an education for them to know, okay, how hard can I go? Like what, like they get more body awareness. It helps them, in their learning process, their development. There's just like so many benefits to it. And I would have never even thought of things like that if I hadn't been in this situation. So, I think that I'm constantly growing and I'm constantly learning, and I want to be able to sort of spark that within my kids as well.
Totally. Yeah, I think that a lot of times when you have kids that have to face adversity, like you said, even just roughhousing, that's like a form of adversity a little bit. You have to know when to stop, and they're going to get hurt a little bit, but that's all part of kind of learning who you are. How do you think you balance that as far as adversity with money stuff? Because I know, like Adam, you've talked about, you grew up, on, food stamps and stuff like that. It's not the easiest to show your kids adversity when they kind of have everything that they want and need. How do you think, can you intentionally give them adversity in certain ways? How do you do that?
I think a lot about this. I do. I think a lot about this. Number one, you have to be able to say no to your kids. So that's real important, even if their friends are all doing the same thing or whatever. And you could tell it's bringing them grief. You have to say no, and maybe create situations where they can earn things. The second thing that I think may be effective, and I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to start with my son. He's going to be going into high school next year, so he's about to turn 14. Is he's going to volunteer every year in a difficult situation, and I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like. Whether that means he's going to help feed the homeless, or if he's going to go over the summer to build homes in Mexico with his school or whatever. I think it's important that I manufacture some of that challenge and have him see what, kind of how lucky he is, and have that kind of gratitude. Because, you're right. I think when you grow up with everything that you want and everything's easy, you can really start to take things for granted, and you may find yourself a little nihilistic. And worst case scenario, you end up with a challenge, which inevitably you will be. Then you can't handle it. You've never been able to overcome any challenge. You never practiced overcoming challenges, so now you hit with one and you tend to crumble. So those are the two things that come to mind that I think may help with that.
I think about this all the time, especially with a kid on its way, and I get people that message me all the time, like, "Oh, you're gonna buy him all these shoes? He's gonna have shoes like you?" And I'm like, "No, not at all, actually." And I don't want. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I'm 37 years old and I'm having my first kid, because if I would have had a kid at 25 to 27 range, which was kind of at the peak of me really starting to make really good money, I was still very insecure and still didn't have a great relationship with money. I still felt the need, because I came from nothing, to show people that I had it and that I'm successful, and then I paid for everything and I did everything. And that was driven through my insecurities. And had I had a kid at 25 or 26 years old, I'm sure that would have bled right into him. Then my kid would have been, playing with all the most expensive toys, had the most expensive outfits on, and, he would have been spoiled to death because of my own bullshit. And then who knows what that would have turned him into. So luckily I'm older, much wiser, grown through that myself, and I'm beyond that. So, and I understand the value of, and I'm thankful for the adversity that I went through as a kid. Like, by no means do I feel sorry for myself that, it was tough when we were growing up. Shit, it being tough is what turned me into who I am today. And so how do I manufacture that for my son? Well, I don't know if I'm going to, force him to have the lights off and pretend like our PG&E bill went out.
Just random beatings.
Yeah, randomly. Oh, we can't have dinner tonight. Dad can't afford it.
Cold showers from now on.
I don't think I'll do things like that. But there's a couple things that, that I've learned through friends and relationships I've been into. I had an ex-girlfriend that used to do her parents did this with her, and I thought it was really cool. Is anytime that she would come to her parents and she wanted like a TV for her room, or she wanted something, her dad would make her write a paper on why she wants it or thinks she needs it. And she had to sit down and explain and articulate why and explain herself, and then they would have a conversation about it. I love what I'm definitely going to implement what Justin does with his kids. I think that he's built this whole little system of the chores, whether it be as simple as just taking the trash out or making your bed or putting your toys away. But he's put a value system on everything. So, I don't know if mine will look exactly like his, but I envision it being like putting your toys away is, $1, or mowing the lawn outside is $10. And so you have all these, you put a value system on all these things that he does, and then he can afford to now buy time on his electronics, buy the things that he wants as far as toys, and to kind of to start to build that understanding of the value of $1, I think, is really important. So I'm sure I'll do some things like that.
I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend this morning. We were going for a walk before I came to work, and I started to reminisce about the times that my dad used to take me to work with him. And it made me realize that that's probably a good idea, to have my kids, when they're old enough, come here and work for me, and to treat them like an employee, and to make sure they do a good job. And to fire them if they do a bad job. I mean, when I worked with my dad, it was in the summers. My dad worked construction, so I'd have to wake up at 5 a.m. in my summer break, and I'd have to mix cement and bring cement in there and cut the tiles for him and all that kind of stuff. And I used to hate it. And I never complained to him because I had that kind of respect for my dad. So I never said to him I hate this. I just went and did it. And I remember, but I would think to myself gosh, I wish I had the summer off so I could just do nothing or whatever. Now, looking back, right, as an adult, I am so grateful for those times. Number one, it was a great time spent with just me and my dad. But really, I learned so many skills. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to keep my mouth shut and work hard and not complain. And it really put things in perspective. And it really molded me to kind of the person that I am today. So I think that's a big one. Like, when my kids are old enough, they're going to work here for me. And then when they're old enough to get a real job, I'm going to make them get a real job. I think it's a big mistake when parents let their kids hit 18, 19 years old and never have had a job. I think that's insane. Like, my kid's getting a job as soon as he's legally able to get a job.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you're going to work. You're going to get yourself there. You're going to figure out how to get there. And it's one of the best ways to learn responsibility and to learn the value of money.
Oh, it's such an education. I remember even for myself, just doing all those jobs that nobody wanted to do. And it's funny because we had Joe DeCina on, and he started to talk about like how he raises his kids and how he implements struggle. Like,
he's so
all
tough.
the time. He's the most hardcore like I've ever heard. But at the same time, I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh man, I should kind of be doing that, but I'm like trying to find that balance where you're not so much of a like tyrannical, like oppressive force to where they're going to, rebel and resist all that struggle that you're putting in front of them. You're helping them understand in a way what's on the other side of that. And like how doing all this stuff, like what that produces. And so again, to Adam's point, like when I was trying to structure this for my kids and create like this little economy, this little system where it's like, this equals this. And like, there's a little clip with money actually attached to it. So they physically go and then they can collect it and then put it in this jar. And we start calculating it up, and it's like, well, okay, so you look at the store. We'll go to a toy store. You see how much this is, like how much have you earned so far? And so it just creates better conversation, better ways for me to educate that you did this, and maybe picking up dog shit isn't that fun, right? Maybe that's not that fun, but that was $10, and like, and look what this like produced for you. So I don't know. I guess that's one way that I've tried to kind of implement that with my kids.
Yeah, and the other thing too is also part of the other things that you learn about what the value of money is the value or the non-value of things. Oftentimes we have money so we can buy things, and one thing that I try to teach my kids is that what's more meaningful tends to be experiences. So like, if I spend, money going somewhere with them and we are all together, it's probably more valuable than if they just bought this thing that they could play with and look at. And so oftentimes when they have money, I talk to them about this. Like, what do you want to get with this? And they'll talk. So why don't you think about an experience you'd rather do with it? Studies support this. I've learned this myself. I'm not a big things person, mainly because I learned this lesson a long time ago where I would buy things and I temporarily would enjoy them. And then I think to myself like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Then I'd do something like I'd go on a hike or a trip and I'd come back and I'd think about that for for years. I would never forget the way it made me feel and the experiences I got from it. So this is another important thing too, because I think a lot of times people want to make a lot of money to get a lot of things. But really when it all boils down to, you don't need that much money to get the things that really are
Create
meaningful
memories.
to you. That's it. That's
Exactly.
it right there.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for my mom. She homeschooled me and my brother until we were in like 4th grade or so. And one thing that she did was a similar kind of economy thing, but instead of money, it was screen time coupons.
Right.
So if we did like a chore, it was like you got a physical coupon. It was like 30 minutes of screen time, so we could play a game on the computer
That's
or
awesome.
something. But yeah, I love the idea of this little mini economy, because I think that's one thing that kids don't understand, that I never really talked with my parents that much about money, because it was always kind of a subject where I think growing up at my church and stuff, we had a lot of like wealthy friends in this area, but my parents weren't super we weren't poor by any means, but we weren't as wealthy. So I think always like that subject was kind of touchy for my parents a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, I really like that. The idea that you were kind of talking about. And also, what age do you think you start introducing that adversity? Because you're about to have a newborn. Are you gonna let them are you gonna let them struggle right out the gate, like put on your own diaper, cry it out? Like at what age do you kind of start introducing those little obstacles and challenges?
Something that I heard a little while ago that was just so powerful is you never do for your children what they can do for themselves. So obviously, he has an infant. He's going to do everything for his infant. If he can't do anything for himself.
Yeah, they got to figure it out.
But you'll be surprised, as they start to get older, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old can help you set the table. Now, you're going to help them out a little bit. It might take longer, but that's okay. So here, put the fork over here with the plate, and make sure you grab the plate, bring it with me to the sink to rinse it off. And as they get older, the responsibilities start to multiply. And I learned this. I mean, gosh, I grew up in a household where my mom, the typical Italian mom who did everything for me, it was so damaging. She was very loving, but it was very, very damaging. I know this because I got older. I had to learn this as an older adult. So I look at my kids. My son's 13 years old. He could do almost everything. Like why do I do anything for him? It's actually a disservice to him if I do everything for him, because he's not going to learn that responsibility and that self-reliance. I had to learn that the hard way. You know when I learned it? When I got divorced. Because I also married someone who did everything for me. She eventually got sick of it. But after I got divorced, I was like, holy shit, I don't know how to do anything for myself. I need to figure this out. I should have learned that as a kid. And so your child will dictate that, I think. But obviously, he has an infant. He's going to have to do everything for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's a lot easier as a parent to intervene. Yeah. And so you're constantly fighting that normal sort of inclination to just take over, because you have to practice so much patience.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would take ownership of that as a parent and be like Sal's saying, like, if they can physically do it themselves, even if it's going to take them like 30 minutes to tie a shoe, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch them do it and like poke my eyes out, while they try to do it. But it's going to go way further if they learn it earlier than if I'm going to do it and then try to teach them later, where you've created these bad habits of them like relying on you too much.
It's funny, my daughter's 9 now, right? And recently, and this has been hard to implement because, like Justin said, it's difficult because it takes time. Of course, your kids are going to fight it, and for me, I have my kids only half time, so I get that guilt, like, oh, I don't want them to hate it here. I'm always telling them what to do, but I kind of push forward. My daughter, what I used to do in the morning, I'd wake up early, I'd make my kids their lunch and make their breakfast and get everything ready for them. And then now my daughter wakes herself up. She gets her own breakfast ready. She made her lunch the day before. Now, of course, I supervise and I watch what happens, but now she's got it all on her own. And she's happier as a result because she feels more responsible and self-reliant.
She has a job.
She feels like she's more a part of the house. So, yeah, they fight it at first, but what you end up finding is that they actually appreciate it later on. They feel more confident, more self-reliant. That's a good thing.
I think about that with like employees too, or like hiring anybody. Like, for example, I recently brought on a guy on my team who's my producer with the podcast, and in the beginning especially, there's certain things that I'm like, oh, I'll just do it real fast, or like, how do I edit this, or fix the music or whatever. But I want to get to a point where it's like, I trust you enough. The past 5, I haven't had to even review it. Like, it's been good, so like, just post it or whatever. Like, I think the same thing with kids. It is rewarding because he's gonna feel better about it because he's got a sense of independence. No one likes the hovering person always telling him what to do and all that. But I also wanted to kind of touch on something that you brought up before we started recording, was the idea that people are now they don't know how to be by themselves, and kids with their screens and everything, they've got phones. I remember when I was in high school, my parents like would take away my phone, and I remember how devastating that was because that was like my social life, right? And it's kind of like the new version of grounding, but almost even worse because like the phone is the hangout. Like, it's not necessarily just like you can't go hang out. It's like it's not only just the hangout, but it's like your life source almost with the phones. And I know I've heard you talk about how at night you hang up the phone at night and everything. You get off social media, things like that. How do you guys balance that in the home and also in your own lives? Because obviously social media is like everything kind of for your business a little bit.
I think first of all, I think it's rad that you have a mom that saw that and started to implement that early right away, because I don't think a lot of people, I think a lot of parents are just completely oblivious.
There's no boundaries.
It's also an easy babysitter. Like,
yeah,
here you go. I don't have to
what I see right now with people that are my age that have got kids, the introduction to the iPad and the iPhone is like one of the coolest things ever for them. It's like, throw on some of these crazy baby channels on YouTube, and the kid will just sit there and watch it for an hour, 2 hours, and it's like the best thing ever for these parents, and they have no clue what they're setting them up for. And I remember when, it was a couple of years ago on the podcast when I read the Adam Atler book, Irresistible, and I fucking freaked out. Like, I read it, and there were so many things that I didn't know about the phone, and one of those things being like, the people that create these fucking things don't even let their kids use it because they know that they're engineered to be addictive. And when you look at like kids' brains at the ages of like 5 to 7, this is the most formidable years for them. And so if you're allowing them these behaviors, these tools, to be using them all the time, you're training them to be addicted to that. And then, of course, pulling it away from them when they get into middle school and high school has got to be like ripping teeth out of their head because you've been giving it to them since they were 5, 6, 7 years old. So it
literally feels like withdrawals. Like, it's crazy.
We have a 17-year-old that works for us, and he's one of my favorites to talk to out of all the staff, and because he gives me insight on what it's like to be in that generation. Like, we all grew up, before any of that existed. Like, we didn't have we had a pager. Like that's what we had. Like, so a cell phone didn't come for me till I was 20.
Yeah.
So I had already established most of my friends. I had a social life already. So I never used any social media until we really started this business. So I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have none of that shit. So that, for me, it was really easy for me to see somewhat, knowing that for 20 years it was not a part of my life. And now the back 20, it's been very much so a part of my life, and to see the different behaviors and how it's changed me. So I have a very clear picture of that. And I don't know a lot of kids, that have that are maybe like younger 20s because they were born in with it.
Yeah.
It's like a lifeline for them. So it is, I'm sure, so hard to pull that away from them. So I think about this constantly on how I'm going to deal with this with my child. And now I don't know, and I don't like putting stuff out there like, I'm going to do this for sure, because I know that having a kid is like a fucking whirlwind, and I know that it never goes to plan accordingly. And so I know better than to tell myself I'll never do certain things, but I have specific goals. Like, I told Katrina already that, right now I come home probably around 3 or 4 o'clock at night. It's typical unless I'm training afterwards. So I said, I'm probably going to start staying at work for an extra 2 hours, whatever time that ends up being. So I'm going to come home later, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule any computer and social media time here and get it all done, so that when I walk in the door at my house, I don't want my son to even see a cell phone.
Wow.
Like, I don't even want him to know they exist until he gets to an age. Literally, like, I don't want him to know it exists. Like, I want to try and let him think that it's not a thing until he gets to an age where he understands and can comprehend, and then we'll have that discussion. So I have this goal of not allowing him see me on the phone ever, especially if I'm like scrolling. I mean, answering your phone to talk to your grandma or FaceTime that's different, right? But I mean, I don't ever want him to look over and see his dad on the couch and I'm staring at my screen. Like, that's a personal goal for me. And then the same thing goes for, the television. Like, I love to binge and watch Netflix shows and do a lot of those things. It's one of my favorite pastimes, but it's extremely important to me that he doesn't see dad staring at the TV. So I'm going to try and schedule my favorite Netflix show or that during his nap time, or when he's away with his mother, or when he's with family or doing something else, because I also don't want him to see me staring at a television all the time, because, monkey see, monkey do. And if I already allow him to see those behaviors in me, then he's more likely to fall in the same trap. So that's a big thing that I think about all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, what Adam's talking about is he's organizing and developing practices, and with modern technology, that's what is required. You need to have practices. It's no different than the practices that are required around food. I mean, for most of human civilization, or for the most of the time humans have been on Earth, we haven't had to have these structures around food. We ate healthy because that's what there was. We were active because we were active.
Whole Foods.
Now, today, if you want to be active today, you have to structure it. There has to be a practice. You go to the gym. You schedule it. If you want to eat healthy, you have to inform yourself, because food is so available and so plentiful. You can't just go eat whatever. You have to develop a practice around what you eat and when you eat it and when you exercise and your activity and all that stuff in order to be healthy. That's all it is. Modern life just requires those kinds of practices. Well, modern life also requires practices around technology. You can't just leave it out there for unlimited consumption. You just can't do that. It's no different than having bowls of candy all the time for your kids and just letting them self-regulate. They won't. They can't. It's hyper palatable. It's processed food. Never existed before, and their bodies didn't evolve to be able to naturally, tell them when to stop or whatever when it comes to food like that. Same thing with technology. You have to develop those practices. So for families that don't have any practices, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of unlimited consumption. It's going to get out of your hands. If you have practices where you're like, okay, you get 4 hours a week for my kids, 4 hours of total screen time a week. You could save it all up for the weekend or use it up during the week, and we'll mark it down, and you'll lose time when you get punished. And sometimes I'll give you extra time if you do good things. We also, the lights go down when the sun goes down. We tend to turn the TV off in the evening, but really it was that time. That was an easy one for me. 4 hours, and that's it. And Adam's got some great practice. I think if you have practices and you stick to them, I think you'll be ahead of the game. That's I think the key right there.
Yeah, I think like having any sort of discipline with digital well-being, I know that's like a pretty huge thing right now, because I think everyone's realizing how much of a stranglehold these tech giants have over our lives. I mean, we're here in Silicon Valley right now pretty much with all these big tech companies literally right at the doorsteps of where we are right now.
We predict this to be the number one conversation in the next 3 to 5 years. I think the two things in health and fitness that you're going to hear a ton of is digital wellness. And then I also think you're going to hear a lot about posture with kids. And they're both connected because we used to never have this. You would never walk by a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old and see them hunched over on a phone. That didn't exist 20 years ago. And what happens when you do that for hours on hours every single day, you start to form and shape the body. And so you're starting to see this excessive forward head and the rounding of the shoulders and the upper back starting to curve. And you're starting to get kids that are complaining of back pain.
That's the fastest demographic in terms of complaints about back pain is kids.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be digital wellness, and I think they're wrapped into each other, because I think what's causing all the back pain and bad posture is the increased sedentary lifestyle, and the addiction to technology, the phones, the iPads, the computers, being stuck on them all day long. And so the combination of putting in good practices on how much time you're spending on it, and then also putting in practices as far as corrective work, exercise-wise, to combat that, because it's inevitable. It's a part of our life.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a lot bigger than people really know or anticipate in terms of it being a problem if you don't address it now. All those issues are just going to come to full fruition later. Like I've even seen signs of it, even with my own kids, of just the posture in itself, and having to then, educate right away of like, okay, well, we need to actually start structuring, movement practices, and we need to like implement this in your daily life, because when we were kids, we were outside, we were climbing, we were throwing the ball, we were doing shit, and it's like, that just isn't the norm. The norm now, kids love to play video games. They love to interact with each other socially online. And I mean, you're not gonna just fight that. Like that is always gonna. I mean, that's a massive pull for a social outlet for kids growing up now. So to create new opportunities for them to express themselves physically is super important for me. And this is something like I'm trying to address this by actually building things in my backyard and inviting an environment that promotes structured play and climbing and like just being outside and understanding that physicality is important.
Yeah, total wellness and health always for a long time has been about discipline, structure, and good practices. It's always been that way. Religions that have been around for thousands of years typically involve practices to encourage good overall wellness and health and well-being. It's even more important the more modern societies become. Now, why is it more important today than it was 1,000 years ago? Because now we have more of all the shit that we want. Or I'll give you a great example. This is a silly example, but it's 100% true. When you look at the diagnosis of erectile dysfunction among men, which age group do you think it's growing the fastest in? Most people would guess the older demographic. No, it's the younger demographic. You are getting men in their 20s now going to the doctor with erectile dysfunction. That age group almost never had issues like that just 30 years ago. It didn't exist. Now, why does it exist today? Because now we have easy access to pornography. The barrier to get your hands on pornography today is non-existent. When I was a kid, it was very difficult. I always make this joke, but when I was a kid, I could. Some kid would give me his bike for a dirty magazine. Today, you'd
always have to go to the woods or something.
Why were they always in the woods? That was a setup.
Every guy, when you went in the woods, was like, "I'm gonna find a dirty magazine." But it's so
the very back section of the video store.
It's so accessible nowadays that we really need practices around the consumption of pornography, because we're desensitizing ourselves to that kind of stimulus. Well, that's true for everything. As we continue to progress, look, today there are more people who have more stuff than ever before. Poverty is worldwide is at all-time lows. Now, if we continue on this trend, if no calamity happens, if everything continues down this trend, technology continues to make things easier, just imagine 30, 40 years from now, you're going to have everything. The sharing economy is making access to before inaccessible objects now accessible. I can now rent $1 million homes through Airbnb, and it's totally affordable for the average middle-class person.
You can couch surf.
You could do the same thing with exotic cars. I have access to all the information that's ever been recorded in history. I can have any food I want at my fingertips. I can communicate with anybody whenever I want. I can have sex with people anytime I want through apps, through finding people who are interested in the same thing I am or whatever. So 30, 40 years from now, I mean, we're going to have everything that we could ever want. The people who are going to be healthy and happy are the ones that are going to have discipline and practices. Everybody else is going to be in a bad situation, because they're going to be in this position where, wow, I have everything I want, but I'm fucking sad. Now what?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do now?
I know Joe Rogan has a new, I went and saw him at the Comedy Store a few months ago. He has a bit in his new stand-up routine where he talks about how there was this study done where they basically installed like an orgasm button into this lady, like back like a long time ago. Somehow they wired her brain where she literally had like a button that could just make her like orgasm on demand. Yeah. And the crazy thing was is she was just banging that button all day long. Like she didn't do anything else. And it was like, basically it was just like what you were saying. It's like once you have access to like arguably the best stuff, you don't even have any discipline around those types of things.
You get desensitized too.
Yeah. And look what happens to people look what happens to some celebrities. These are people who have access to lots of money, more money than most people, access to more sexual partners than most people. You're a famous celebrity, you could have sex with whoever you want, good-looking people, whatever. Access to drugs. And what ends up happening to a lot of these celebrities? They commit suicide. They're depressed. They get all this stuff that they think that they want, and then yet they're still empty inside. This is where addiction comes from. It's that wanting to fill something that cannot be filled with that object. So you just continue and you become relentless with it, and you develop addiction. I mean, doing drugs, I'm sure heroin feels great. There's a reason why people do it, right? I'm sure it feels amazing. But people get addicted to it and they kill themselves. Alcoholics do the same. I've drank alcohol, never become an alcoholic. Why do some people drink alcohol to the point where they literally kill themselves? I think health and wellness today and the future more than ever is all around the discipline and practices. And it's funny because, again, you look at the wisdom of ancient religions, and what do they preach? That's all they preach is abstinence, discipline. It's fulfillment, not through achieving and getting all this pleasure and money and objects and power. It's through the disconnection of all those things. And it's that wisdom rings more true today than ever before.
Yeah, I love your analogy you always bring up about, Mount Everest and just like the difference of being able to be helicopter dropped onto the top and summit Mount Everest versus actually climbing the thing. Like two very, very, very different experiences. Mm-hmm. And one of them super rewarding, one of them good for Instagram. And that's about it.
Yeah. I think about it. My brother and I, whenever we go to concerts, we'd always try to like sneak in the VIP section. And it was always this game of like how we could sneak in, or we stole a bottle from the bottle service table. Oh my God, we just had the GA, or sometimes even we didn't even buy a ticket, we'd like sneak in or whatever. And it was like when we actually bought the VIP and we were sitting there, we're like,
not as fun.
This isn't even fun. Like I'd rather be in the GA area where everyone's having a good time. Like all these people are just rich and sad. Like it always, the grass is always greener and all that kind of stuff. So true, right? I definitely agree. And I wanted to get you guys' opinion too on where you think, like you said, that you think this is one of the biggest conversations that's going to happen as far as digital well-being and all this stuff. Do you think it's going to get to a point where society is just going to have to change so much of their behaviors around like these devices that we're holding, or do you think the form factors are going to catch up? Like, are we going to have some sort of like implant? I
absolutely think.
Yeah, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and I think that we actually will have. I think we're going to have. Half of us are plugged in, the other half are unplugged.
Maybe even, I think maybe more like a little bit of us are unplugged.
Right. I don't even, when I say half, I don't literally mean 50-50 as far as, but I definitely think there will be the plugged in and there'll be the unplugged. I think there'll be people, I mean.
How do you think they'll get us? Like, what's the first step?
Well, it'll be voluntary, dude. No. The first, people will want to do it.
Your phone's already your appendage.
The first step is already here. You bring up Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan interviewed Elon Musk. And that interview, he said something in it that like kept me up at night for like fucking months.
We talked about this for hours one night.
Justin and I just went down the rabbit hole of this, and he says, everybody's so scared about artificial intelligence coming and killing off everybody like Terminator. So he says that's not what it's going to look like. He goes, we have a great example of it right now, and he picks up his phone, and he goes. Right now, you have access to all the things that we're talking about right now, Sal. You instantly get your food, instantly get pornography, instantly have everything. The answer to every question. The only difference is it's an extension of your mind right now. You have to actually type it in or voice activate it now. We're a step away from it being embedded in you. And imagine you and I having a conversation, and we're debating something, and all you have to do is think. of whatever it is we're debating, and the right answer is populated into your brain right away. So that is going to happen. We are very close to that happening, and it's going to be really, really tough for people to not want that.
Yeah, that's the last barrier for struggle, really. I mean, mentally, to be able to try to recall information and to be able to like summon your own ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of, to me, is like the last frontier for like having, something having full control and full access to information. Like they're talking about Neuralink and all these other things potentially coming out in the future. And I know that's a fear of mine in terms of people just like not realizing like what they gave up to get that.
We're going to have all the knowledge and none of the wisdom.
Yeah.
You're going to have all the answers, but none of the wisdom that historically came from seeking and figuring those answers
came
out.
from the struggle.
I mean, it would be it's no different than if we had a magic pill that could make everybody fit, lean, muscular right now. You just take the pill, boom, fit, lean, and muscular. People would soon realize that they didn't gain nearly the same benefits as that they would have gotten had they learned how to develop a good relationship with food, structure activity, enjoy the exercise, understand their bodies. They would have gotten the answer without any of the wisdom. The struggle, when you did your math homework in school and the teacher's like, show your work.
Oh my God, it's the worst.
The work is where everything is, not the answer.
Yep.
The answer provides something, but what the answer provides you with is small compared to what you get, what took you to get that answer. And what's going to happen when we get rid of the process? Holy shit, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that's going to look like when you have a bunch of 10-year-olds that are fucking know-it-alls.
You're
Think
not
about
going to
that.
think like a human being anymore. You're just going to think like a machine.
Do you think that we're going to have to fundamentally change what like school is and all this stuff? Because that's where my mind goes.
That's going to get flipped on its head too.
It's the most useless time to like know shit. Like to like memorize dates and stuff from school. Like why would I even like want to do that kind of stuff?
It'll become obsolete when this happens. Like when 10-year-olds have access. And of course, the way evolution works is it'll only be accessible to the super rich at first. And they will get to use it, and that'll create just even more of a disparity between the rich and the poor. But eventually, I think that it'll get broken into. Everybody will have access to it, and we'll have all this information. We already live in a time right now, and we talk about this with school. Like, I mean, when that time comes for my kid to potentially go to college, I don't know. I definitely want him to make the decision, but I most certainly will educate him on the possibilities of him educating himself. That Dad can send you off to some college where we spend $200,000 or more to get you through it, or you could go down to a local library or pick up your phone and download courses and start teaching yourself. So I think we're already in a time now where it's becoming more and more obsolete, and it's only a matter of time before one of the big four, like the Googles, the Amazons, or Apples, or Facebooks, decides to tap into education. And what we'll see first is they'll privatize it, so it'll be like for them. So if Apple's smart, if Google's smart, if Amazon or Facebook is smart, they have enough employees, they've penetrated enough of the market. There's enough people going up through college right now that are going to college in hopes to get a job with one of those companies. Well, they'll just cut those. Right now, college is the middleman for Facebook and Google. Soon they'll have education systems within themselves that once you come out of high school and you're like, oh, should I go to college, the old college, or should I go to Google College, which is all about everything I need to learn to become the best Google employee?
And I'll probably get a job at Google as a result, and I'll learn stuff that's up to date and now, because the way tech is moving now, pretty soon, if you go to college to learn about tech, for example, let's say you want to be an engineer or a coder or whatever, by the time you're done with your 4-year degree, most of what you learned was already obsolete. That's, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to have to be like in real time. It's already getting out competed. But, I was thinking about when we were talking earlier about just this incredible access to just information and knowledge. Just knowing more shit and being smarter sometimes can be a terrible thing. I think about all the terrible people in history who've done really, really bad things. They weren't stupid people. They were actually brilliant. They were just evil. Yeah. So what's going to happen when you give everybody the ability to know everything? That's fucking scary. I don't know if I want everybody to just have that information instant without developing, like I said, the wisdom that it takes to get there. That could be a very scary thing. There's a lot of fuckers out there that would take that ability and use it in ways that are absolutely.
Well, that's why I think people like Jordan Peterson are really like speaking to people right now, because he takes those ideas that people fundamentally think are good and then takes them down the rabbit hole and shows them like, okay, we're taking this idea that, on the surface level seems like a great idea of like inclusivity or whatever, but take that thought experiment all the way down and we're looking at a really terrible thing. We're looking at a terrible future. And I think that like the real value, to take it back to the beginning with podcasting and stuff, when we have access to, every fact or whatever, the real value comes in, people discussing and having opinions and stuff like that, because the facts and the truth or whatever, everything about fake news and blah, blah, blah. But, when everyone kind of knows what's going on, I think the real things that matter are the thought experiments and the opinions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's funny. It's when you listen to mystics and philosophers and a lot of them talk about the folly of man, humans, believing that they are gods. And what I mean by that is maybe not literally, but we think we have all the answers and we can solve all the problems. Like, we think, for example, at some point, I'm sure that science will be able to figure out a way for you to 100%, figure out the compatibility of a potential partner. And so you're going to go on a dating app and they're going to find the perfect partner for you. Boom, first time, you're perfectly matched up. Now, is that going to be the solution? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you need to go through the process of learning that about yourself. And that's what turns you into who you eventually become, and that's what prepares you to then maybe meet that particular partner. At some point, are we going to be able to edit your genes to give you that hardworking gene? Is that going to be the same thing as learning the value of hard work through time and effort? I think sometimes, we celebrate ourselves so much and we think we're so awesome that we have all the answers. That's when scary shit happens, and I hope we learn that lesson before it's too late.
It's the morality, I think, and if you want to talk about artificial intelligence and you want to keep going down the road of progressing this technology, what I worry about the most is we seem to be in this race to be able to get there, and I don't think that we've put enough efforts in, like you said, these thought experiments and these checks and balances of what that actually means, what the side effects to that, or what that is even going to look like, and visualize like what that looks like in the future. And do we really want that? I don't know if we even asked that question a lot. Do we even really want this?
It's scientism. I think I'm saying it wrong. I don't know. It's the worship of science, or the worship of ourselves as the ultimate, beings and answers to everything. That's got a bad side to it, and it leads to moral relativism, where I can make anything sound moral, and if it feels good, then it is good, and if I can, then I will. Nobody's asking if I should. If I go down that path, then I could clone myself and harvest organs. And who cares? I'm just going to clone myself, but without a brain, so I wouldn't even feel the pain, and I'll just clone them so I can have these organs. Or why can't I? I don't want to have kids with someone else. I just want to clone myself and raise myself. What's the big deal? Like, that's okay, right? There's nothing wrong. I'll be a good parent. And we go down this moral, I'm going to, these are AI robots, and that's why we can have sex with them and murder them and rape them and whatever, and make them look however we want, whatever age we want. It's just a robot. Yep. What's the big deal? Like that's not just a slippery slope; it's an endless slippery slope. And so, that's why I'm saying more than ever, we're reaching a point where
we have to talk about these things. Yeah,
like morality and practices and structure is what's going to save us more than it's always been important for us. It's what makes us, successful as humans. But boy, is that going to be important moving forward.
I definitely think the Westworld thing it could be a depiction of what we'll see in the future.
Oh, bro, I didn't watch that, but
It's a
I'm
very
assuming
likely
that's,
scenario.
Did they show stuff like that?
It's a lot like Ex Machina.
Well, think about it in a world where you can have everything, anything, and everything's easy. You got everything,
and it's a robot, so nobody cares.
Well, no. Think of that our world right now is like that. So what you would want to have is a world where you create all this adversity, where there's murder and there's all this, but it's just a
no
game.
consequences.
No consequences, just a game. So I can go into this little world and be whatever character I want to with no consequences. Sleep with whoever I want, shoot whoever I want, fight with whoever I want, and it's in this little world, so it doesn't count.
Well, right, we're trying to create that there. We're also trying to create that in the virtual realm. You know, there's this effort in that direction because people, we're trying to avoid the consequence of, our decisions.
I just had a high thought, and I'm not even high. I'm totally sober. Like, what if mankind already reached that level? What if we got to the point where we had everything that we ever wanted, and then we realized, holy shit, we need struggle, we need adversity. Yeah. Let's create a universe where we could plug ourselves in, and it's fucking challenging and hard, and maybe that's the one we're living in now.
Whoa.
Simulation.
The Matrix. Yeah.
But to take it back to fitness, like, I think kind of to wrap this whole conversation up, like, I think that's why people are probably drawn to fitness, because it is adversity, it is struggle, it is pushing yourself.
100%. Yep. Fitness is a very clear black and white example of what, of facing adversity, overcoming it, becoming better and stronger version of yourself. If done properly, fitness is a wonderful teaching tool for yourself along those lines. And they find people who exercise consistently and have a good relationship with exercise are more successful across the board because you learn those lessons. So I used to love training kids. I would show them this example very easily. I would have them do push-ups, and then the next week you did one more push-up, and it's like...
It's a microcosm for life.
Totally.
It's a great teaching example, and I love that our show is based around that because it opens up anybody who's a human being to have a conversation of how to better themselves. Fitness is something everybody can benefit from. And what we've noticed is when people really buy into it and they understand it on a deeper level, that completely translates to all the other areas of their life that they didn't even know that this mentality and this way that you've bettering yourself physically, you can also do mentally. You can also do in your job. You can also do in your relationships. And it just has so much carryover. And so that's why I love that that's where our root is.
Totally. Well, guys, thanks for coming on my show, even though we're at your place. Where can people find your podcast and all that kind of stuff? Where can they follow you on social media?
Oh, shit, just look up Mind Pump. You can find it. We tell people that...
They're everywhere.
We're like a gang.
Yeah, no, we tell people, please don't go buy anything from us. Take advantage of all the free content. I mean, we've spent the last 5 years pumping out as much free content as possible, so we have...
mindpumpfree.com is where you'll find all of our guides.
mindpumpfree.com. You go to our YouTube at mindpump TV. There's all kinds of free content there. We have 30 days of free coaching on the website at mindpumpmedia.com. We have a free app in the iTunes store under Mind Pump Media where you can actually go in and search a topic. So obviously most people can't go back and listen to over 1,000 episodes if there's specific topics you want to learn about or
you just got to go on that 5x speed and just freaking...
We actually have people that still go back and binge all of them. It's pretty wild. But take advantage of all that stuff. And we're most active on Instagram. And Instagram for all of us is Mind Pump than our name. So mine's Mind Pump Adam. We got Mind Pump Sal and Mind Pump Justin.
There we go. Thanks, everybody. And see you later. Thank you. Boom. There you have it, folks. Thanks again to the guys from Mind Pump for being so awesome and for hosting me for my first ever 4-man podcast. Also, shout out to the producer, Doug, for being so awesome to sit in on this recording and run the audio and video. Doug is the real MVP of Mind Pump Media. So, all right, we made it to the end. I'm sure you're very sad, but if you enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure you did since you got to the end, I have a couple of other episodes I know you will enjoy as well. So first up, make sure you go listen to episode 112 with former professional MMA fighter and founder of Smash Global, Steve Orozco. And after a successful career working on Wall Street, Steve was very unhappy. He left it all to pursue professional fighting, and he actually had an amazing record, but he stopped fighting professionally to pursue building his MMA event company, Smash Global. And we actually connected during my recent trip to LA back in January, and he came over to my little makeshift podcast studio. So check it out. That was episode 112 with Steve Orozco. Also, go check out episode 59 with my buddy Jack Morrow. I recommend this episode a lot because Jack has an incredible story of being this scrawny little kid into an absolute monster powerlifting god. And he and I grew up together in the same Boy Scout troop. But after he went to the Naval Academy, he just started powerlifting, and the rest is just history. During that podcast, we talked about all kinds of stuff, including his origin story growing up in Boy Scouts and school, his path to the Naval Academy, his introduction to powerlifting, and so much more. Go check it out. That was episode 59 called Scrawny to Savage. And if you want to support the show, take a moment to screenshot the podcast and post it to your Instagram story. That really helps a lot, and I appreciate everyone who's been posting those screenshots lately on their stories. It really helps out in getting the word out. And if you want to follow me, go to andrewdeitch.com. You can find all of my social media links there. Damn, this is one of the biggest episodes I've done so far. I'm so grateful to all of you guys for listening, and thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Check.
He sounds
1, 2, 3.
He's got a face and a voice for radio.
I resemble that comment.
Zippy
Resemble?
zappy.
Yeah.